out of a show of hands, I'm just curious, how many of you marched the day after the inauguration? How many of you went to the... So the majority, okay. Do you, so this is an open question, and we'll think of some questions and we'll pass the mic around. But after that, did you feel a sense of power? And do you still feel that?
Yeah.
Or do you, and if that is the case, Mila, since both of you are, well, you're all nodding, but how do you think you harness that kind of energy and push it through and continue to make progress, even though it seems like we are very much, as you said earlier, going backwards?
So I've had a lot of emotional reactions to the election, and then the marches reminded me of our time here at Barnard. I don't remember how many times we shut down the West Side Highway. We learned that if you went to Wall Street, they wouldn't tear gas you because the people in the buildings would get tear gassed as well. A lot of good information, you know.
Tips for protesting.
Tips for protesting, right.
Last question.
But yes, there's a tremendous amount of energy and interest and enthusiasm, and so the real challenge is how do we harness that, and how do we keep it going and channel it into actually making changes. And that's a tough one. What we're doing in New Jersey and actually across the country through Emerge. I told you about Emerge. How many of you have ever heard of Emerge? Okay, Emerge is a national organization, and it is for training Democratic women to enter the political process, okay? And I wish I had had it. I wouldn't have made a lot of mistakes that I made along the way. I think I got lucky, but it is all about being intentional, about making a difference, getting involved, and having that seat at the table. Remember I said if you're not at the table, you're on the menu? Well, that is true. And so there are many different ways to get involved. Everybody doesn't have to run for office. I have a kitchen cabinet of women who support me. They help me in every way, whether it's social media or raising money, which I hate to do the most, or making phone calls. I have a couple of people, because we have such a poor budget to run our offices, who are very highly educated, motivated, smart women who do policy work for me. I can't read hundreds of bills and stuff. I can't do it. And it's supposed to be a part-time job. But they come in and they do that work. And they make recommendations about, you know, what we should be doing, who I should be meeting with. And it's taken me a while to figure that out, which is why I go back to Emerge. There is training now for any woman who wants to get involved. And it doesn't matter what age you are. I mean, I'm in my 60s. And I find that being older, you have a perspective, have a little bit more time, maybe a little less energy, but you can figure out how to organize the energy that's out there. And I'll stop now, but I want to say that on Monday, for example, I'm so excited because my chief of staff and I are taking a group of about 20 women. 16 of them are 8th grade girls, and the others are their moms who are going to drive them. And they're going to come to Trenton with us for an education committee meeting. And we've given them the bills to read, so they have an idea of the summaries. They have an idea of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to take their picture on the, floor, because most of our kids are not making those trips to Trenton anymore because budget cuts, right? And they're going to get their pictures taken, and then they're going to go on a tour, and they're going to do things. And why? Because on Valentine's Day, these young girls came to my office unannounced with handmade valentines to thank me for working on issues of women's health and anti-bullying, and and I don't want them to lose their enthusiasm. So you have to find things to keep them interested. And, you know, they're calling, they're really amazing young women. They're going on to high school next year, and they're all going to be involved, and they're talking about it. And they organize around a lot of different things, and domestic violence, sexual violence, anti-bullying issues, you know. So that's on a very small scale. And I think that's where we start. I think we have to find ways for each person who has that interest and energy to make voices heard. Marching and rallies are great, but it doesn't do the work.
And Vernā, you mentioned your son, right? So he was raised in Newton, great education. How has he inherited your sort of passion, your interest in activism, and how do you bring in this younger generation, not just of girls, but of young men, and make them understand? You know, I do think that again, you know, my daughters who are 14 and 16 are going to have a much different perspective. They're still going to hit walls as they get older, and you know, it's like the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years. The old generation has to die out so that the new generation can come up and have new habits, right? So, but the question is how do you incorporate your own son to be that voice of change for his generation and his friends?
So he's my favorite. I only have one, but I adore him. He lives in Brooklyn, and he's very much a social justice advocate. He's working for the Osborne Foundation, which supports, young people whose parents are incarcerated. And then he's doing the work on the legislative level. He's doing the one-on-one, trying to help young people find their way. He called me. You know, I'm in Baltimore. And Freddie Gray was killed by police there, and there was a huge unrest. And he picked up the phone, he and his girlfriend who's like first generation Norwegian, working class, badass woman. And they're like, we're coming to take care of you during the march, which meant we know how it's done. We know where the tear gas will come, what you can do, what you can't do, because they're on the streets all the time marching and dealing with things like what's happening in neighborhoods in Brooklyn and gentrification and so forth. And so what I saw is that I was being led by him. I also came here for the Eric Garner protest, and he was a protest leader, and he was saying things, and I was like, honey, I don't like that one, the slogan. That's not nice. But you know, he's very sophisticated, and part of his sophistication is understanding the issues for all groups, including women. And so I think that is the challenge for all of us as women, because the thing that I loved about being in DC with one of my Malibu bestie, she and her beautiful daughter and we were in DC for the Women's March. And what I was reminded of is the intersectionality of women. It's not just we got black women and we got white women. We got people who are sick. We got sick is whatever, you know. And we've got people who are Muslim, and we have people who are wealthy, and we have people who are down on their luck, and we have people who have disabilities, and we are all of those come in women. Like, women come in every shape and size, and that is what that march reminded me of. And so when I'm talking to people about bias, for example, I'm saying all of us have to check our biases. Like, all of us around religion, around class. I mean, there's so many ways that women come that if we are going to have a unified voice, we all have work to do. I have work to do as a straight person. I know that I'm learning more about what it means to be transgender or LGBT or whatever. So I think that the hope I got was that you're right. That gender thing is a way. I mean, I'm slow sometimes, but when I saw all those women of every background, even different political, like we didn't all agree about every political issue, what I notice is that if we can heal, if we as women can do our work across identities on biases, we can change the world. There's no reason why we wouldn't be able to. We come in every one of the identities that is having a problem. If we can figure out how to learn and how to have courage and compassion and quash our fear and go for a way of understanding that connects us, how is it that the world would not be able to change in the right way if we do the work? The problem is, some of the times we're not doing the work. We're clustering in our own comfort. And we have got to expand our comfort zones. We have got to do our work. It could be race, but it could be class, it could be weight. It could be physical appearance, ladies. Right? That you don't think that woman looks right, or you don't think she has on the right clothes, or what's she doing with her hair, and all the stuff that we get into. That's a type of bias. Or what school did people go to? Or what region do they come from? If we can't clean our own stuff up as women, we can't be the light that we could be if we see the universality of who we are. So I believe I got so excited by looking at the variety among us in those marches, because I was like, if we can get it together right here, there's nothing we can't do.
Amee, since you are the youngest on this panel, my question is, when you were here, did you feel a greater sense of activism, or did you feel there was a good kind of activism on campus, or is it still sort of small? I'm not asking you to, from your perspective.
Sure.
And it.
Yes, I can only speak from my perspective. I think that one great thing about Barnard is that you have the whole city. And so I think that sometimes, people at Barnard can really choose what they want to focus on. And sometimes that's issues on campus, and sometimes that's issues in the broader city. And so I think with activism for Barnard, it just looks very different, because I think it could be very centered on the Barnard-Columbia bubble, or it could be focused on Morningside Heights, or it could be focused on all of New York City. And so I think when I was here, I felt that I had friends who were very interested in lots of different things, and were sort of really all over the place, literally, in the city doing activist things. So I think that it was not quite as strong as it was in the 60s of changing things on campus. I do think actually a year or two after I graduated, there was a little bit more. But yeah, I think that it was just that mostly like people could, because I think the thing is that there's so many issues for us to all care about, and it's hard to equally dedicate our efforts to all of those things. And I think to have the biggest amount of impact is being able to figure out, I think, where the best fit is for you and where you feel you can have the biggest impact. And so I think that's what a lot of people, I think, take away from Barnard, is being able to find sort of that often niche area where they feel like they can make the most amount of change.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you all for your final thoughts, but I do want to open it up if there is a question or two. Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite group of charities or movements that you feel today are the most important? You don't have to name one. I'm just asking you.
What direction maybe. So did everyone hear she was saying, did everybody hear? Just one, okay, good. That's a hard question for me. I'm very, I'm up in the C-suites a lot, talking sweetly as I can to the men who run things. And I'm trying to encourage them that it's in their best interest and the interest of their company's future prosperity and relevance and competence to look at these issues of the barriers against groups of people. But I've also more recently, because I moved back home to Baltimore, been thinking about Main streets. And so I don't know if I would say I would move out of the C-suites, because I think there's a lot to be done there. But to me, it's on the street. Anything that you can find in your local environment where you're not just being philanthropic, you are sitting beside and listening to the narratives of people who you do not know and you have not spent a lot of time with. And I think was said over here, believe what they're saying about their experience and taking their lead about what would help. You see, it's a contact sport that we need to be in. And many of us are sort of like, you know, because the internet, you can like give a lot of money. I give a lot of money too. But when I get changed, it's because I decide to contact something that's different from my comfort and awareness. And so I can't name a specific thing except to say, if you aren't uncomfortable, if you aren't looking for your discomfort somewhere and learning to grow from that and taking your lead from that, then you may not be being used in the best way that you could to move things forward. Does that make sense to you? Find something local.
Yeah, but do you personally have something that you're passionate about? What's one particular, like, food?
Baltimore. Baltimore. I'm doing conversations. I'm talking hopefully to the police. I'm, trying to work with nonprofits. It's just, I'm in a regional state of mind right now. I'm in my city. And that's why I came back from Boston and Newton. I went from the safest city in America to Baltimore, that may be the fourth dangerous city in America, but yeah.
So, yes, please.
So, one of the things, I always like to give somebody something very specific to do. And here's something you can do. Register people to vote.
Yes.
All right? Make sure that they're registered. Make sure that they understand that they can vote by mail. I know in New Jersey now you don't have to have an excuse to vote by mail. All you have to do is you can check a box and say, I'm always going to vote by mail, or I want to vote by mail in this particular election. So that's one thing. And one of the best places to go to register people is your local high school. Yeah. We do that at our local high school the week before graduation. Actually, when they go, the kids have to come in to graduation rehearsal. So you have a captive audience. And it started many years ago in my town with the League of Women Voters, and now it's a regular thing. The administration knows we're coming, and you go in and you register them to vote, because if they're going to be 18 by November, they can vote. And we talk to them individually. We don't give a big lecture, but we just talk about the importance of voting. It is really important. One of the women I have been working with for a few years who ran for council 3 years ago, lost by 14 votes. And she told me, she said, I wake up at night thinking 14 votes, right? But she didn't give up. She went to Emerge, she got trained, she, expanded her base, and she was the highest vote getter in the last election in November. And she's now on the council in her town, all right? So you can do it. And the last thing I want to say to you is be intentional. My life is like a series of lucky breaks and opportunities. But if I had been more intentional, I might be doing different things or better things even. So this is what I tell women that I meet, and young people generally, is think about what it is you want to do and then start doing it. Don't wait to be asked. Don't think that you're not good enough or smart enough, because everybody brings something to the table. And the last thing is, what we do in my family is we have Sunday dinner every 2 weeks, about every 2 to 3 weeks. And why is that important? I didn't realize how important it was until now, some 30 years later, my kids are still bringing their friends to dinner on occasion, and my nieces and nephews will ask, can I bring so-and-so to dinner? And why? Because at dinner, there's no TV, there are no devices, it's conversation. And everybody can talk about anything they want to talk about. And you really learn so much about what's going on in young people's heads, in older folks' heads, what the concerns are, and you get that intergenerational exchange that I think is so valuable. So those are my takeaways for you.
And so, Erika, I'm going to pass the Erika. What is your advice for everybody in this room? So be intentional, Erika.
You can't be neutral on a moving train, which is a quote from Howard Zinn, right? It means that whatever system, whatever family you're in, whatever organization you're associated, whatever you have access to, your church, your temple, inside of that, your college, your university, the huge bureaucracy you work in, that there are choices and allyships to be made. And what that means is if you think it's too big or too hard, there's always a place to start. But that we can no longer be inside of our institutions and be comfortable. And we have to actually start to do it somewhere. And local and family is sometimes where we have to start. In other cases, we just didn't, we're not willing to take certain risks. And there are risks we can't tolerate, and there are risks we can, and we have to get bolder. So you can't be neutral on the moving train. The train is going down the track. You can sit on that train and pretend whatever direction it takes you in, that's just the direction. You can choose to get off the train, go do something completely different, or you can guide that train. And so whatever your strength is, build on it. Whoever your community is, do not distance yourself from it. Bring it in.
Amee.
I would say that culture change takes time, and it takes a lot of time to change people's minds. And one thing I have learned from working in sexual violence prevention response is that you're not going to always reach everybody, but what you can do is plant a seed. And I think that go a long way. And I've definitely worked with students where they'll be very resistant to some of the information that they're learning, and it can feel really frustrating when you've just spent a really long time talking to people and educating people, but seeing that you're planting a seed and that people have to have multiple conversations about that for that knowledge to really sit in. But I think that sometimes that conversation, even though it can be frustrating, even though it can be painful, even though it can sometimes be really infuriating, it can go a really long way. And I think to also, along with that, being able to revisit it. And I'd say the other thing too is I think that anyone can be an activist, and that there's lots of ways to make change, and we have to figure out what makes the most sense for us. But I think that everyone here has different ways and has different ways to make our world better.
Vernā.
So I thought that I would give a quote, a very short quote from alumni, Zora Neale Hurston. And she says, gosh, I just had it, okay. Love makes your soul crawl out from its hiding place. We all have to find the love that allows us to crawl out of where we have been hiding. There is no force that is greater than love. It will be the thing that extinguishes our fear and allows us to make the connections that is going to save us as a human race. So love boldly, talk boldly, walk boldly, stand boldly. We need you all to do that.
And so my final thought also is a quote from Maya Angelou, and that is, we are more alike than we are different. So I want to thank all of you incredible women for all of your advice, all of your guidance, all of your insights, how to engage better in the world, both out professionally, both personally, both with our fellow man. I want to thank everybody who came. I want to thank the men in the audience too. It may not have been the most friendly environment at all times, but we need you as much as we need each other, and so we're all in this together. And I want to thank you.
Thank you.